Alright guys, so the newest full-length series to come to Netflix is called Stranger Things. This is created by the Duffer Brothers and it stars Winona Ryder, Matthew Modine, David Harbour, Millie Bobby Brown, and Charlie Heaton, to name a few. And the basic storyline is on November 6, 1983 in Indiana, 12-year-old Will Byers vanishes instantly. Will's mother, Joyce, played by Winona Ryder, becomes frantic and tries to find Will, while Police Chief Hopper, played by David Harbour, begins his own investigation. The very next day, a mysterious girl, played by Millie Bobby Brown, with strange abilities appears who knows the whereabouts of Will, but as they get closer to the truth, they will have to face not only a sinister government agency, but a more insidious force who plans on devouring them all. Now, out of all the series that Netflix has come out with since they've kind of been taking on the TV world, this one's by far my favorite. I know you're a big fan of Orange is the New Black, so how does this stack up with all the others to you?
Well, seeing as it's the very first one, it's really hard to say, but I really enjoyed this. With other series, it takes a little bit to catch on, and it feels like within the very first episode or chapter one, as they introduce it, it gets you hooked the very first time. You're like, what the hell is going on? I have to finish watching this and see what this is about.
Mm-hmm. So to me, this series, it feels like Steven Spielberg, John Carpenter, and Stephen King all got together in a room and just came up with a TV series. Because like the Duffer Brothers, you can tell that they took influences from all three of them, like their themes and their style, but it never felt like they were just outright copying any of them. And I'm a big sucker for the '80s settings. I know you're not quite as it's not quite as close to your heart as it is me.
Yeah, I'm definitely more hesitant towards like everything because how they dress and the weird stuff that they use, but they everything that they use as far as like walkie-talkies and all the cool stuff, like playing Dungeons and Dragons and just riding their bikes around the neighborhood like 80s kids did. It definitely got my attention, and I can say I really enjoyed this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, like what I liked what they did with the 80s setting in this show, like sometimes when shows or movies go into the 80s, they feel like kind of like Hot Tub Time Machine, where they have to like beat you over the head with 80s stuff.
Yeah, they stuff it down your throat, and it wasn't like that. It was very subtle, but you realized it right away.
Exactly. Like I loved all the like it was like there were seamless nods and homages to the 80s, and they were all really fun. Like I know almost every single episode they'd show somebody's bedroom and there'd be like a movie poster. I'm like, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's Evil Dead.
They were all really cool movie posters too, and you saw them from further away. And even like in the show, how we were watching, you were like, that's really cool when she goes in and she kind of gets an advance with like kind of on a tab, really. Like they don't do that shit anymore because of how people are. So it was really cool, just feeling like we were back in that time during the show. I enjoyed it.
Exactly. I'm a huge sucker for the 80s, and especially anything that has that Spielberg feel to it is always awesome to me. Like it felt like almost like a cousin to, it's like the Goonies and It had a baby almost.
Yeah, with E.T. in there as well.
Yeah, a little bit of that in there. So yeah, I loved all that. So let's talk about the characters a little bit. So David Harbour plays the police chief Hopper, and David Harbour, he's a character actor. I've seen him in quite a few things. I know he was in End of Watch, and he's usually a guy that I don't really like anymore. That much. He always kind of plays that dickhead character, which he kind of has hints of it in the beginning, but he ends up kind of growing. I liked him a lot as this police chief in this.
I don't recall ever seeing him in another movie. Cody normally tells me, oh, he plays in this or that, and I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, he does. But seeing him for the first time, and like I said, in this show, he fits so perfectly. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, I liked him. He was kind of like that dickhead that you like. Almost like he kind of had that more. It was almost like he kind of reminded me of the way that Bradley Cooper was kind of always the asshole, and then he kind of had that little bit of a transition whenever he started getting into the Hangover movies, where he was still kind of a dickhead, but you started to like him. It was kind of like that.
And
to me.
He kind of had to have that being a police chief. You got some shows where the police are just pushovers, and you got other ones that are just assholes the whole time. But his character changed a little bit over time, as far as being, at first it seemed like he was the hard cop, that I'm not dealing with any bullshit, and then it was like, he started opening his eyes up, and he got compassionate about the people, and you got to see a little bit into his life, which was really neat. So I enjoyed him.
Now, what did you think of Winona Ryder? Now, she's a big 80s sweetheart. Like, she was in a lot of those old movies, like Heathers, and she's always had a few always had a lot of classic roles with Tim Burton movies. Like I know you like Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands and all that kind of stuff. She plays the grieving mother for the boy that's missing. So what did you think of her?
I liked her as well. She fit right in, like I said, with all the characters. I feel like all the characters, they did really good picking and choosing for this show, and it just flowed really nice. But I enjoyed her a lot. She seemed crazy at first, and you're just like, what the hell? And then it's also like, that same feeling, like, what would I be doing in her position? If this were to happen to me, if one of our kids went missing, how would we feel? And so, I mean, I feel like I probably would have done a lot of the same stuff, but she was really good. She wasn't too crazy over the top, but
I thought she was really strong. I thought she played it really good where she kind of starts as that grieving mother that you're kind of figure, okay, she's just going to be like the basket case this entire series, and she's going to be crying and miserable, but she kind of takes on this kind of like this.
Like she evolves from like the weeping, crying, I don't know what to do, to she was just like, all right, it's time to
yeah, she kind of takes it on. Yeah, she takes it on almost like a mission after she starts getting hints that her son is still out there.
Yeah.
And she kind of like, she gets to a point where even though everything that she knows and everything that she sees is batshit crazy and nobody's going to believe her, she doesn't give a fuck. She's just like, I'm doing what I'm doing to get my son back.
Even like the point where, I know we don't want to do this too much as a spoiler, but when...
Yeah, we're going to keep this pretty spoiler-free, guys.
When they think that her son is dead and they're planning a funeral and everything, she's like, that's not my son, and I'm not, I don't know what the hell, and I don't care what you guys do, but I'm going to find my son and I'm going to bring him back type of stuff. So you're just like, wow, she's not ready to let go. But it's not as one of those things where it's like that's the end of it. She's just, like crazy, fucked up in her head, and she's crazy. But I mean, she fits in well. I enjoy her a lot in this too.
Yeah, I liked her a lot. But to me, the stars of this show was the kids.
Yeah.
They had the one kid was good for the little bit that he was in it before he goes missing, Will. But the other three kids, Mike, Dustin, and Lucas.
We don't see much of him before he goes missing though. You only see him hanging out with his friends.
That's what I'm saying, though. He was good until he, for the small part that he was in. But the three kids that kind of take on the mission to find their friend, Mike, Dustin, and Lucas, I thought they were awesome. Like, they were right. They were just as cool and as fun as the Goonies.
I agree, and I feel like using Will as the character that went away, he was kind of like the weaker link in the friends. Like, you know what I'm saying? You've always got that kind of runt in your group, and that's who he was. So I liked how they kept Mike, Dustin, and Lucas as the three main characters.
I like the one kid. I'm pretty sure it was Dustin, the one that didn't have the teeth.
Yeah,
toothless. He was really funny. He had he's got some kind of a condition where he can't grow his adult teeth fast enough, so he's missing like a third of his mouth, and he was really funny. He reminded me a lot of Chunk kid from the Goonies, like when he's looking for the chocolate pudding and stuff. He's like, guys, I found the pudding.
Yeah, I know she's got it hidden around here.
That
somewhere.
bitch is hoarding it. I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were awesome. They always, everything that the kids did, every scene that they were in, I was always engaged, and they did a really good job at being kind of strong kids, but you could tell that they were kids. They weren't like all of a sudden they were smarter than everybody else. They kind of kept themselves grounded.
Yeah, I liked how how you say the kid friendly thing was definitely there as far as the very opening part. You see them all in Mike's basement playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is like, okay, this is probably something that almost all 80s kids did. And you see later on him and his friend Lucas, which is like the token black kid in the group, and they're talking on these giant walkie-talkies. So that's
the walkie-talkies really cool. Are almost like freaking TV screens. Like how big they are.
Well, about the size of a tablet. It's really funny. Yeah. And then just watching them ride their bikes around the neighborhood and just riding their bikes to school and stuff, and it's stuff that in a few years, or when Shane and Bella are our age, you're gonna look back and be like, oh my god, that's crazy. Who would have been able to do that because of the world that we live in now. But yeah, it was really cool. I like how it took us back, and the kids were fun. They made us laugh at times, so that was really neat. But they also, it was very
you were really engaged in their mission to find their friend.
Yeah, and you wanted them to find it, and you were, when they were sad, you were sad. When they were happy, you were happy. So it's like I felt like we kept in touch with them the whole show. And kind of like the fourth or the fifth member of their little group who comes in at the end of the first episode is 11. And she was a really cool character. So she was basically, without giving away too much,
the first episode after Will goes missing, there's this big facility in the middle of this town. It's called Hawkins Laboratory, and it's that classic '80s town where they have that that mysterious government agency that's there somewhere. So.
Yeah.
11's basically this kid that was experimented on, and she breaks out of this laboratory, and she finds this group of kids at the end of the first episode.
She's wandering around in the woods, kind of lost, and they kind of take her in under their wing.
Exactly. So she kind of joins their group, and she knows more about what's happening to the town and what's going on with this laboratory and where Will is, and there's a lot of kind of back and forth with the kids trying to like figure out what's going on with her and discovering these different abilities that she has. And her kind of discovering friendship for the first time.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot of the E.T. character because it's like she was born in this laboratory. She was born in a laboratory and raised there, and she's never seen the outside world. So it's really cool watching her discover things, as like you say, friendship when they're asking her who she is and they're telling her their names and she's like pointing at herself saying 11. It's almost like that Tarzan character when Jane finds him and she's like, me, Jane.
Yeah, it reminded me of that, and it was a lot more serious version to me of like Encino Man. With like
I've never seen it, so.
He's like a caveman pretty much. It was an 80s kind of movie or early 90s movie, but yeah, just they kind of teaching her how to say certain things, and like they teach her mouth breather, like how to insult people and
then by the end of the show, she's one of the main characters from the beginning, but she learns so much, and we learn so much about her and the abilities that she has. It's really cool. She's one of those people that tug on your heartstrings the whole show, I felt like.
Yeah, because you feel like she has all these abilities that she doesn't quite know what to do with, and she kind of reluctantly uses them to help her friends out and everything. And
like she's scared to use
it, but she gets forced to use it, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, she was cool to me because I never felt she was like a bad guy, but she had just enough mystery to her where you couldn't quite.
She could be the bad.
Yeah, you never quite knew if maybe her intentions weren't all there.
Yeah.
And I really liked her relationship with Mike. So Mike's kind of like somewhat like the leader of the kid group, and they kind of have this real subtle kind of romantic. Yeah, exactly. It's never beaten over the head, and it's never forced. It's very organic and natural, and the way that they kind of depend on each other, where he doesn't have like a whole lot of female attention. He's trying to kind of bring her into the group, and she's kind of looking at him as kind of her best friend, and he's teaching, like whenever he's asking her to the dance, and she doesn't quite understand.
Yeah.
He doesn't quite understand it. And,
well, I mean, he takes her in, so in a way it's like, how he kind of explains it as far as towards the end when he's like, you can live with us and my sister will be your sister and all that stuff. And but then again, it's like, you see the little romance blossoming, not from the very beginning, because I don't even really think they realize she's a girl. But yeah. Yeah,
exactly. And I liked he's not like the main villain necessarily, because there is a movie monster in this. But Matthew Modine, I thought he was pretty good as like the main scientist. He was real understated, and he was mysterious. He wasn't like the mustache twirling villain. He was a lot like Peter Coyote's role in E.T. He was
definitely tell he was the like mastermind, kind of the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, he's like the main scientist of this mysterious laboratory. But I always thought he was cool because he was never like so glaringly evil where like the show just forced you to hate him. But he was
I feel like I didn't hate him at all.
Yeah, they kind of put him in front of you and was like, okay, this is the guy running shit. You kind of make up your own mind about him, but they
show you he's bad, but like you said, you do get to make up your own mind, which is really cool.
Exactly.
It's not one of those things where it's like, damn, I hate this guy from the very beginning. You're not quite sure what to think of him because he doesn't
They keep him very grounded as just a scientist. You can tell he's just trying to explore
and like you say, he's
girl's
not
abilities.
A bad scientist. They're just
he's not like trying. He's not like
a lot of stuff and how to make certain things happen. And then when he starts to realize all the stuff he can do, that's when he starts pushing it, and you realize, oh, okay, yeah, he's the bad guy, but it's not like he's doing things to hurt people intentionally. So
yeah, he's not like trying to watch the world burn kind of thing. He's just he's a scientist.
Yeah,
so
he's exploring.
I thought that was a good little break from most horror movies, because they usually beat you over the head with, okay, this is the guy that you need to hate from the beginning.
Yeah.
And
no, I didn't feel that way with him at all. I felt like he was a really cool character where you get to see enough of him, but then again, he's not he's not overly scary. You're not afraid of him the whole time. You're not like, oh God, what's he gonna do now?
Yeah, exactly. And then the other small little group that we could talk about for a second, Nancy, who is the older sister of Mike, and Jonathan, who is the older brother of Will, the one who's missing. They kind of have like an unlikely partnership about halfway through the show. So Jonathan obviously is trying to, once he gets brought on to the revelation that his brother is still out there, he's trying to find him.
Yeah, he's got a lot to cope with in this show as far as, his brother going missing. He's kind of like the weirdo who, if I'm not mistaken, he's already done with high school. We can't really tell because you never see him in the school-like setting. But not only is he dealing with his brother being missing and all this stuff and being the weirdo of the town, but he's dealing with his nutcase mom at the time, and he's the one that's kind of grounded throughout it, still, worried about his brother. But
yes, and then Nancy's kind of like she's kind of like your classic 80s girl as far as, the things that she starts going through in the beginning, like, liking the popular guy at school and all that kind of stuff, and kind of drifting away from her best friend for the sake of connecting with this random guy that she wants to get with. And, she starts off as your typical 80s character, but then throughout the show, especially after some things start happening with this monster, she kind of gets drawn into the search for Will. And her and Jonathan kind of have an unlikely partnership because he's kind of like the outcast and she's the girl dating the popular guy. And so I kind of liked where they took them.
Yeah, it was kind of strange with her character as well because, she never would have fallen into it all if it hadn't been for her best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's also a victim in the movie or in the show. But
yeah, exactly. So very good characters in the show. Let's talk about the story a little bit. So to me, this story being it's 8-episode season, which was a perfect length for me. I have a problem with, I still watch a few shows out there like The Flash and Arrow and Supernatural where they stretch over a season over like 24 episodes, and I'm getting to where I'm really not a fan of that format anymore. I love just short, trim all the fat. To me, the way True Detective kind of trimmed the fat and what that did for cop procedural shows, this show did for, like, sci-fi shows. You know what I mean? Like, every episode felt like it was whole. It didn't feel like there was any filler episodes.
There wasn't. In the same aspect, I feel like it left me wanting more. When it was already over, I was just like, oh, my God, it's already over. I wish there was more. When's the next season coming out? And, left me with so many questions. What's it going to be about? But, yeah, I liked the 8 episodes. It didn't seem too long, and like you said, it was filled up great. There wasn't a lot of downtime. There wasn't a lot of, questioning why the hell did they even put this in there. Everything that they showed was for a reason, and if you didn't understand it right then, soon enough it tied in. Yeah,
and all the episodes had a really good setup to me. Like I felt like every episode had a really good hook at the beginning, and then you got into the main title and. Then the meat of the show, and almost every episode had a really good hook to make you want to go ahead and skip to the next episode and kind of call in from work. So,
yeah, not only that, but even like the theme song, I guess is what you would put it as.
The score.
It wasn't one of those things that you're just like, oh God, but then again, it wasn't so short that it was just like, okay.
I was always looking forward to that because to me it had a very John Carpenter sound to it. Which I know you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but like he did like The Thing and Halloween, like the Halloween song, like yeah, that's John Carpenter. He's famous for he makes a lot of the scores for a lot of his movies, and they always kind of have that 80s, synthetic sound to it. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
So keeping with the story, to me, like I felt like the story of the show kept unfolding at a really good rate. Like there's a lot of mystery at the very beginning with, this laboratory and this kid 11 and this monster.
What really happened to the boy?
What really happened to the boy and, where is he at? And
a lot of these facility that you see.
Exactly. A lot of the mystery keeps unfolding, and I felt like it unfolded at a really good rate. Like it never unfolded too much at one time before you could digest it all. You know what I mean? Like every little reveal was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then
I see how this plays in.
Yeah, exactly. And it always left you with just enough questions to keep you watching.
Exactly. And every episode, it was like, we watched it at night, and every time it went off, I was just like, man, I'm tired. Do we have time
for one more?
But I could really watch another one, and it kept you held and captive almost. It was like it would it would have been a good show to just binge watch on a Saturday or a Sunday.
And with an 8-episode season, it's very easy to do.
Oh yeah.
And the way that they write the story too, to me, it was a really perfect mix of fun, laughs, scares, and intrigue. Like there's scenes where you're laughing, and then the very next scene you're like scared for what's going to happen. You know, there's a lot of like boiling tension, and then you end up, you know, following the kids, and you feel like you're in the Goonies again, and then all of a sudden you're on It. And it was, you know, it was really
back with E.T., not sure what's going
on.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, you know, they take a lot of familiar pieces of a lot of classic horror and sci-fi movies, but they always have like a unique spin on them. Nothing is like ripped straight out of something that you know already know. And the way that they kind of wrap the story and the way that these kids interact with things, being that they're in an 80s setting, I loved how they related all their situations to Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars. Like every time that they felt like the cops were on their tail and they'd tell somebody where they're at, she's like, "Oh, he's gonna Lando us!" And like, so I loved all of that because I know where all those references were coming from.
And there were little things hidden as far as, you know, like I said, the very opening part of the show, you see them in the basement playing Dungeons and Dragons, and although it doesn't they refer
to the monster as the Demogorgon and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all that, and then, you know, there's little subtle hints, like you say, about the movie posters in their wall or on the walls of the kids' houses or in the basement, or, you know, even the stuff at school, how they ride their bikes. There's a part when the fatter kid, I can't think of his name, Toothless is what we're going to call him.
I think it's Dustin.
But he has the Star Wars ship, and he's like, "Here, use your powers."
He's got the Millennium Falcon. He's like, "Come on, you can make it float," and then she won't do it, and then later on it shows her practicing, and she's making the Millennium Falcon float everywhere.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Little, that's one of those little nods that I love. And to me, like you were already kind of hinting on when I was talking about the 8-episode season, like to me it wrapped up very well, and they left a lot. Or, well, not really a lot, but they left just enough hanging to make you, like, foam at the mouth for season 2.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, why is he doing that? Or, oh, my gosh, you know, what is that? And how did they let that escape? And then, you know, as far as, like, it was all so interesting. And you love the characters so much that you're ready to see them come back. And although it's not going to be the same story, it might not be the same characters coming back. But it it leaves enough, and it leaves...
it leaves just enough threads hanging where you know that there's got to be a follow-up season 2.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I was afraid whenever I was watching it that this was going to end up being like an American Horror Story where this one season is all you're going to get with these characters, but I'm glad they left enough hanging to make you, like, to give you enough of a confidence that they're going to come back.
Oh, yeah. I'm very hopeful, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see some of these characters again, which is really awesome because, like I said, I felt like in those short 8 episodes that we watched, I fell in love with all the characters.
Yeah, especially the kids.
Yeah.
So the special effects, what did you think about those?
They were pretty cool. Like you said, for something that's supposed to be an 80s movie, it wasn't bland. Like you feel so many things are. You kind of just see them walking around, just doing whatever. But in this one, it was really cool. I liked the effects as far as the monster that they used, the upside down or whatever. Yeah,
they call it like where this monster comes from is kind of like it's kind of like a play on Silent Hill. It's kind of like a dark version of your reality.
Yeah.
And they call it the upside down, and that was really cool. Like you kind of feel it looks like fog or something, or almost like snowflakes are coming down. It reminded me a lot of Silent Hill.
Yeah, it's like the same world you're in, except for it's darker, and it's like
dark and covered in slime,
floating around in the air. It's kind of what you would think of after like an apocalypse, but the buildings aren't all destroyed. They just look like no one's been in them forever. Yeah,
I liked how that looked, and I thought the effects of the monster were really good. I thought that the design for it was unique enough to make it differ from a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And it was done pretty well. And they used tension in the jump scares really well in this, too. It wasn't like cheap scares like you kind of have become cliche in horror movies nowadays where, you hear a loud bang and it's just a cat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too, exactly. Because some of the shows now that you watch, when it's something scary coming, they'll throw in a loud noise and so you know it's coming, or like everything will get really quiet. And it happened a few times in the show, but for the most part, it was, unique, and it was
used well, and it was spread out enough where you couldn't really expect it. Like like the scene where they were getting ready they found that deer, and they were getting ready to mercy kill it, and all of a sudden, whoosh, it just gets ripped out from under them, and so that was really good. And I really liked how at the opening of the show how they had the Stranger Things title, and it was had like a font that looked a lot like old classic Stephen King books.
Typewriter, kind of.
Yeah, like old classic Stephen King novels, and even the way that each episode, it's not like episode 1, it says chapter 1, and it gives you a title, and chapter 2, and all the way to chapter 8.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think they could even put into books. You know, even like Orange is the New Black, how it was based on a book. Mm-hmm. I feel like this show, I don't know if it was based on anything.
No, it's all new.
Yeah, but them putting this into a book, I feel like would make a lot of money. I like that aspect as far as reading a book and then watching a show, because when you read the book, you're able to, you know, make your own characters up, you know, decide what they're going to look like and everything. And with this show, I feel like they did such a good job with everything, and you know, explaining the characters and how they all fit together and how they all interacted. And so I feel like doing a book, they
could do something.
I think
cool
it would
with that.
benefit. Yeah.
Gotcha. So why don't you wrap up your thoughts about the show really quick?
Oh,
like what
enjoyed
you
it.
What you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, if anything.
I loved it. It was a great show. I even feel like they could have made it into a movie. If it was something in theaters, I feel like we really would have went and seen it and spent money on it. Mm-hmm. It'll be something, hopefully they'll come out with it on Blu-ray so that we can buy it, and even let the kids see it. It was cute enough that it was the 80s feel, and you heard them curse a little bit, but for the most part, it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, you make a good point with the kids stuff too, because it's not like overly gory or anything like that. It's not. I mean, unless your kids are really, really young,
Sheltered.
or really, really young, or really, really squeamish when it comes to certain things. I think you could watch this with your kids, and it's like a good mix of the Goonies and It to me. That's what I was saying. So yeah, so to me, I couldn't think of anything bad about the show. Really,
no,
like I was trying to write notes for it. I was like, good and bad. I'm like, I can't really think of anything negative. And like to me, this was an absolute love letter to me, because I love everything about the 80s. I love the 80s horror and sci-fi. So all the little nods and homages was right up my alley. I thought everything that they did was really unique, but I felt all the influences really well. And like I said, this is probably my favorite thing that Netflix has come out with so far. Yeah. So for anybody that is a fan of that stuff like me, like the 80s horror and the 80s sci-fi, like all the Goonies and E.T. and It and, you know, John Carpenter's movies, this is right up your alley. So definitely go check out Stranger Things. And this has been another review from Cody and Holly on the Cody Leach podcast, and we will see you again soon.